Okay, good morning, everyone. It seems that the six are not yet here with us, so I hope they'll just follow later on. So, anyway, I hope you're all fine, and I'll be discussing with you the next assignment, which is March 8th. Okay, which is on Tuesday, March 8th. I've returned your papers, and I was quite encouraged that your papers are quite detailed. So now I'll begin to discuss with you the next assignment. Okay. Now, um, okay. Your next assignment here, June 9th of March, which is an initial review of literature covering the policy issues, theoretical issues, and methodological issues. Okay, and let's look at the elements that get into this uh, part of the paper. Okay, the review of literature is a summary of the research that you did. And in fact, the review of literature would normally be the longest chapter in the paper. Okay. And again, as I said, it's a summary of uh, the research that you did. Okay. Now, in summarizing the research that you did, we are going to order your research papers and in research papers and books and journal articles. They're going to be summarized by themes, and there are three general themes. Okay, you have your policy issues, your theoretical issues, and your empirical issues. Okay, now the policy issues, okay, uh, discusses socioeconomic issues in the topic, existing and proposed government policies on these issues, and background data and information. In fact, in policy issues, the more important part is not a discussion of the it's not a discussion of the government policies, whether they be existing government policies or proposed government policies. The more important part in policy issues is the presentation and data on your topic, and the data will be coming from the Philippines and from other countries. Okay? And the purpose of this is to show that the topic you chose is one that is of ongoing socio-economic concern. It is a real, current problem, current issue. Okay, so if, for example, you chose your topic to say uh, the, the tobacco monopoly increases government revenue. Okay, the tobacco monopoly was abolished way back in the 1820s. So your topic is not a topic for economic research. It's more a paper in economic history, research in economic history. But when your topic is is focused, say, on the 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 infrastructure expenditures increases employment, that is of current concern. Okay? Because if you look at employment, okay, you present the data to show that unemployment and underemployment are still very severe issues, and that also infrastructure is lacking and necessary in order to jumpstart or even actually not jumpstart because the economy has been growing, either to keep on with the pace of economic development or the increase in economic activity. So what you shall be doing is to present data with regards to infrastructure expenditures, the lack of infrastructure, where infrastructure is needed, and also data on unemployment, underemployment, and the like. And since the direction of your argument is that the infrastructure expenditure also um, contributes to long-term economic development, then you have to be presenting data on GNP per capita, GNP and that would be for the Philippines and other countries to show that the issue is of current concern in the Philippines. It's also of current concern for other countries. I have a phone call to answer, so if you could just wait for a minute or so. Okay, I'm back. Okay. Just a cousin making kamusta. Anyway, um, uh, so the data are supposed to emphasize that the issue is one that is of a current socio-economic concern. It's a very real social economic problem. Okay. And then you can discuss government policies on infrastructure and on employment and what proposed policies are, but you don't need to spend too much time discussing the policies. In fact, a lot of the details of these policies, the ongoing policies and proposed policies, you can just place them in the appendix. Okay. The more important part of the policy issues here is the presentation of the data to show that it is an issue of current ongoing social and economic concern, not just here in the Philippines, but in other countries. And my rule of thumb is that the section here should have at least 5 tables or charts of data to illustrate the issues. Okay, the charts would include pie charts, graphs, maps, and the like. Okay. Now, the rule of thumb is that a table or a chart must fit 1 page. Okay? But when your table of data is quite huge, covering more than 1 page, you have to place that in the appendix. And in the body, you present a more simplified table that will fit 1 page. Okay. For example, you have the GNP, GNP per capita, GNP per capita growth rate, unemployment, underemployment for the Philippines and say 10 other countries from 1960 to 2020. So that's, wow, 60 years of data and 10 countries, 600, and then on six different ones. Okay, GNP per capita data and the like, and we're talking about 3,600 data points. Okay, you better place that in the appendix, but perhaps what you can place in the in the body would be either a graph or a table, but rather than presenting the data from 1960 to 2020 for the 10 countries, for these six categories, you might as well put them as a per decade, like average per decade. So average GNP growth, 1960 to 69, 70 to 79, 80 to 89, and so on. Okay, so that would reduce the size of your table and fit one page. All right. Okay. Now, let's look at the theoretical issues. Now here, you are going to look for theories. And these are theories that explain your topic. Okay. Your theories, of course, in this case, if it's infrastructure expenditure increases employment, your main topic is employment. So you'd have theories of employment. What are the factors that cause increase or decrease in employment? What are the various employment theories? Okay. You have your macro theory of investment. Okay. Then you also have theories that uh, relate to foreign direct investment and employment. Then you also have theories that relate to government expenditure, increasing employment. Okay. Then you have theories relating to uh, deliberate job creation by government. Okay, so very many theories that try to explain the level of employment. There's also the arguments of uh, of human capital. That the more educated, the higher the level of human capital of your labor force, the greater will be the demand for their employment. Okay, all these very many theories are there. Then if your other topic is on infrastructure, okay, then you'll have theories of what the effect of infrastructure is. Infrastructure on employment, infrastructure on attracting investment, infrastructure and overall economic growth and economic development. Okay, infrastructure and regional growth and development, all these various theories. You present summaries here by themes. You do not summarize individual theories separately from the others, but you first summarize by themes and you highlight a number of theories. Okay. Now, a theory, okay, is characterized by the following. Number one is that there is or there are authors associated with it. Okay. So you cannot come up to me and say, sir, I'm using the migration theory. I said, which migration theory are you using? There's the Harris-Todaro migration theory. There is the Everett-Lee theory. You have the Fine-Venturini theory. You can say, sir, I'm focusing on human capital. About which human capital theory are you focusing on? The one by Becker, the one by Pissarides, the one by Atkinson. Okay, so there has to be an author or authors. Okay, in the year in which the paper was published that contained this theory. And the second characteristic of a theory is that there's a mathematical model. Okay? The mathematical model presents the theoretical relationship among the various factors. So a mathematical model would present the equation, and the equation can be general, what is called the general form. Like your solo growth model, Q is equal to A, technology, times F of L and K. L and K being your labor and capital sources, okay? Or it can have a more specific functional form. It becomes Cobb-Douglas. So you have Q is equal to A times K alpha L vita, where alpha is vita equals 1. But also important to the mathematical model is the presentation of the first order conditions. Okay? So when you have the derivative of Q with respect to K, okay, is it positive or negative? And explain the reasoning behind that sign. Okay, so that would be for the theoretical issues. Okay, just a minute. Mhm. Seems like somebody's going to make a delivery, so I'll step out in a few minutes time. Okay, so now, okay, from Mr. Ignacio Villarreal with the long hair. For the theoretical issues, do we have to include the mathematical proof derivation for each theory, or is summarizing and explaining the equation sufficient? Uh, method. Oh, the mathematical proof and derivation are not really necessary. You can place them in the appendix. Okay, so you will have to present at least the structural equation and the first order conditions. Okay, for the derivation or the proof of the theory, you can just place them in the appendix. I suggest you place them in the appendix, okay? Because if you get a reader like, say, Dr. Noel de Guzman, ang hilig-hilig niya na yung mga yan derivation ipakita sa body. So it's just a question of cutting and pasting from appendix to the body. In my case, I recommend it placed in the appendix so that your paper remains compact within 50 pages maximum. Okay? But when your reader wants to put it in the body, it's okay. You follow what your reader will advise, because the reader is the one who will be giving your grade. Okay, so now uh, that would be our theoretical issues. Okay, now let's look at our empirical issues. So empirical issues, okay, it's the summary of your research on the data sets as far as your topic is concerned. Say data sets on employment, unemployment, data sets on infrastructure expenditure, and how these data were obtained and measured. And you are also to present here your research on the different econometric models that have been published that involve your topic, and your topic again is employment. Okay. So you have econometric models on employment and the like. Okay. And when you present the econometric models, okay, the following are important, they're crucial. First is again, there are authors. So there's an author's name or names attached to the model. And again, the year of publication of the paper or the book where that econometric model can be found. Okay. And then you present here the reduced form equation with the expected signs, and you present the tables of results to show which particular variables were significant and what their explanations were. By the way, the rule of thumb that I have is that as far as the theoretical issues are concerned, I should see at least 3 mathematical models presented. Okay. I mean, there would be other theories that you focused on, pero that you did research on, but you can at least focus on at most 3. I mean, at least 3, and to present them here in the theoretical issues. Okay. And in the empirical issues, again, you could present at least 3 different econometric models with their respective table of results. Okay. Your econometric model should have your reduced form equation. Okay. Now, there is a difference, a huge difference among econometric models that were published before 1995 or so, and also those published from 1995 to 2005, and what were published since 2005. Before 1995, the before 1995, the computing capacity was not very, very strong, which is why econometric papers tended to have 3 regressors at most. Okay, and econometric papers tend to spend a lot of time, okay, presenting their structural model and the reduced form equation. And the reduced form equation could have, say, 8 regressors. And they spent quite some time proving that the reduced form equation with 8 regressors is equivalent to a proposed reduced form of only 3 regressors. Because computing capacity was limited, okay, the number of regressors had to be limited, and the number of data points, data observations, 35 observations were already considered sufficient. Okay? If you have time this weekend to relax and you're a bit of a nerd, like I suppose Mr. Villarreal, okay, you might want to watch this film, Hidden Figures. Okay, it's about those African American women who did a lot of the computational work in the 1960s, preparatory to launching of men. into space. Okay, and you will look at it. There were a lot of women in the computing center, and they were doing the computation by hand, this manual. There's a scene where there is this computer that arrived there at the NASA headquarters. And that particular computer was a huge machine, huge as in it would fit in the secretary's bay in the Department of Economics if you're feeling nostalgic for our beloved Department of Economics, okay? By the way, if you just excuse me for a few minutes, my a delivery just arrived. Okay, so just a minute. Okay, sorry about that. Uh, so that was computing. Okay. My first job, when I started working in 1979. I was in the research division of an investment bank. Banks are quite different then, supposed to now. Okay, banks then were specialized by law. Okay, so I was in this investment and development bank, the private development corporation of the Philippines, set up and run by Ateneo alumni, and they focused on long-term lending. So I was in the research division, the division that studies different industries to identify investment opportunities. And I also was assigned to help in the economics division. There's a group there that did forecasts on the economy, the international economy, the domestic economy, and the like. And I had the privilege of helping out in the computations in the econometric work. Econometric work there, he needed a calculator and you were computing for, x squared y z x y squared z, and then you did the summation of x squared y z plus the summation of just to compute for each of those individual coefficients in a regression equation that had only two regressors. I'm not sure that you are familiar with the individual elements there kasi siguro nasanay na kayo sa X transpose X inverse X transpose Y, whereas kami we had to look at the individual items in that matrix, and the matrix cannot be too big because our entire computation facility is just a calculator. Okay, by 1995 you have vast improvements in computer chip technology. So you now had more advanced software. So now econometric papers can now have several regressors, up to 8 regressors or so. But the biggest leap was from 2005 onwards, with much stronger chips, with personal computers now widely available, and personal computers, and these are what you call this? These are uh, they have such they have a much a huge computing capacity, and then you have software like Stata, Redtel, which is free, okay, and you have now the availability of data, millions of data and the like. So that's why a lot of the econometric models since 2005 can have 28 regressors and uh, can have uh, you know 3,000 data points, data observations and the like. Okay, I posted in your modules, okay, examples of research papers done by students. Okay, some of those papers have data. They use up to 3,000 data points, for example, because those things are now possible these days. And that's why I encourage you that when you're doing your research on empirical models or for looking for econometric models, to look for those models that were developed since 2005, because those are the ones that can be truly utilized nowadays by modern software and computing capacity. Okay. Some of your professors, for example, accuse me of not knowing anything in econometrics, which is true. Which is true. I never pretended to know econometrics. Kasi iba yung econometrics nung panahon ko in 1980s when we were studying it. Okay. We, the econometrics at the time was almost like mathematics. Okay, so mga economics honors dyan, para siyang yung linear algebra. Because much of the econometrics at the time, yun na nga, as I told you, they involve the presentation of first your initial reduced form with 8 regressors, and you present proof to show that this reduced form with 8 regressors is the equivalent of this uh, model with 3 regressors. Okay? And that model with 3 regressors, that's the one that you compute. Okay. I mentioned to you the 1979 to 1980 we just used calculators to do that. By the late 1980s, okay, some software have emerged, but uh, they are not to be used for personal computers. There were already personal computers, okay, and they weren't laptops, okay, so that when you were to do your computer runs, you can only have 3 regressors. And your laptop, uh, as a graduate student at the time at New York University, your laptop was connected to the by the telephone lines. You're connected by wire to the telephone lines to the huge government computing facility, which went by the name of mainframe. Okay, what the US government did was to provide access to mainframes, to the mainframe to universities and research institutes. They're trying to encourage doing research, but they had to impose some limitations. For universities, para libre, they only provided certain computer time, which meant that you really had to know how to come up with an econometric model with just 3 regressors that would be equivalent yung original reduced form with 8 to 10 regressors. Okay? Because if you have too many regressors, you know you already had to pay for the computer time from the mainframes. Okay, it's a different graph. So once I pass that econometrics there, since then I would just go through econometrics papers. If I have any research that econometrics has to be, I usually ask someone to do it. Okay, especially since mula noong dami ng software that emerged, I never bothered to read up on and master because my focus has always been economic development theory, data, urban economic analysis, and history of economics, which is why when it comes to your software and your econometrics, if you want to go through the nitty-gritty of the econometric models and the like, please get in touch with your econometrics professors. Mabuti na lang ang mga teacher ninyo, mabait yun. Si Winnie the Pooh, si Mr. Saplala. You can also ask Miss Maju Moyrong. She's very helpful, and Miss Jessalyn Bacan. Okay, if you want to look at the nitty-gritty of econometrics and the like. However, ang hawak ko is this paper in terms of its writing and the general acceptability as a technical paper. Okay, so I'll give you a brief of coming attractions. Itong reviewed literature, as I said, is the summary of all the research that you did. Okay? Kasi ganitong gagawin ninyo sa inyong research paper. Okay? You're going to actually, given your topic, you're actually going to focus on a theory that you encountered in your reviewed literature, that you mentioned in your reviewed literature. So you focus on a particular theory, at most 2. Okay? One theory of employment and maybe a theory of structure. And then sa theory na ito, may conclusion siya that the infrastructure expenditure increases local employment. So in other words, it's a theory that argues na infrastructure expenditure, its employment impact is localized, hindi siya national. Okay? Hindi siya when you spend infrastructure, there is an increased employment nationally because of multiplier effects. Okay? There's a theory that says that the employment impact is localized, hindi siya national. So it matters where the infrastructure expenditures are done, and there will be various multipliers, and they vary from place to place. So that's one particular theory. So you might want that to be your focus. So mangyayari, yung conclusion do becomes your hypothesis. Okay? So that's your research question. And that's gagawin yung hypothesis. And this theory is now your theoretical framework. That is now the focus of your paper. And the next focus naman of your paper has to do with the methodology, which is from among the various econometric models that you encounter, you choose one and you adapt it. Okay, you adapt. Adapt means gagamitin mo yung data na, yung model na yun to run a regression using data on the Philippines. Okay? But you would need some modifications and adaptations. Natural, for example, there are theories that include as a regressor theories of employment, the issue of race. Okay? The argument there is a theory that says the employability of a person is also influenced by the person's race. So you put there the race and the like. Okay. Now, these sorts of papers you usually encounter that from those published in the United States of America. Di mo yung pwedeng gawin dito sa Pilipinas. Okay. It's not because we are not racist. It's ko racist tayo mga Pilipino. The difference you see is apart from the differences in our histories and racial attitudes and if there are any government policies on race, there aren't any here in the Philippines. There are no official policies on race. Okay. Not since the Philippines became an independent country. There were racial policies during the era of Spanish and American colonization, pero wala na tayong racial policy compared to the United States of America. But you see, the difficulty in adopting that is we do not collect data on race. Okay? Our government does not collect data on race. So if you're going to use that model, you'd have to adapt. Is there anything here that data are available for through which the employability of a person might be influenced the way the employability of a person in the USA is influenced by their race? Okay. Well, you can argue it could be religion, it could be ethnicity, and there are data on religion and ethnicity. Okay. So yan ang gagawin ninyo. You adapt the economic model. Okay. So I'll stop here. Kasi the next things that will be discussed is already for the next assignment, which will be the next synchronous class, which is about 2 weeks from now, where I'll be discussing the complete paper. Okay, so right now there is time. Each of you can ask me anything about your research, about the entire process, about anything that you'd like to clarify. And there's time for effectively consultation on your individual papers. So you can just hit me with a message on chat or just unmute yourself and start talking.
Hi, sir.
Okay, Mr. Craig.
Yes, sir. Ano po,
I'm sorry?
me and Pia po decided to change our thesis topic. It's gonna be inflation rates and crime rates.
Okay, at this stage, kulang na yan. By this stage, you can change your topic over time, your focus, but you should already tell me your theoretical framework, your theory, and your research question phrased as a simple sentence with increase or decrease as your verb. So right now I say, okay, proceed. But now you should be able to tell me in case I ask for it, uh, what your research question is in a simple sentence form and the theory or the theories that you obtained that from.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Welcome. Did you get the online copy of the paper of Ms. Gulapa and Mr. Nolasco
Yes,
on
sir.
time? Okay, good.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Hi, sir. I have a question about the data that.
Okay, Mr. De Castro, what?
Yes, sir. How many years of data would we need to have? What if, say, for our topic, we come across a data set that gives 14 or 15 years worth of data, but not around 30?
Well, ganito na lang. Kasi ideally, for the validity of your econometric run, we put in as much data as possible. used to be ang rule of thumb minimum 30 or 35. Okay. Ngayon, what if your data is halimbawa 14 years kasi they started tracking that a few years ago and the like. Try converting it into a panel data, meaning to say you get data from other countries as well, where these countries have data for the past 14 years. So if you get 10 countries, ayan, di 240 data observations ka na lang. But you'll have to learn how to do panel data regression. May routine yan sa Stata at saka sa Gretel, and you'll have to read up sa inyong econometrics. Keep in mind that this is research. Okay, so what was taught to you in the previous courses like econometrics and economic development and the like, they were all introductory. Which is why pag gagawa kayo ng econometrics dito, introductory yan. If it involves a certain methodology that was not taught to you, well and good. You learn it on your own. Okay? In the same way, if you're looking for theories of development and the like, you cannot rely on what were presented to you in your course in Eco 1-1, because the Eco 1-1, this is an introduction to the readings on economic development. It's up to you to further go beyond the readings that were provided you. Kaya nga, research ito. Okay, so try and do some panel data regression. Get data from other countries. Okay.
Okay. So just to clarify, so if, for example, a concern is like length or like some longitudinal aspect of the data, we can compensate for like we can make up for validity concerns by going wider with cross section or panel set of data.
Panel data na kasi longitudinal. But of course, I would suggest you also look up econometrics papers, published papers that utilize panel data regression. So you have a guide and understanding of how to do panel data regression and what the results would look like.
Okay,
Okay.
sir. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Oh, any more?
Sir, we have my partner and I has a question.
Yes, Mr. Pedrosa.
Yes, sir. So, I think the comment that you made when we submitted our research was that we had to choose one variable among the three options that we put for our research
Hindi
question.
variable. Those were different topics. That's why
Yeah.
I said
Well,
you make choice. Which topic do you want to? I'm not going to be the one to tell you do this. No,
yeah.
you
Yes,
choose it. And then
we
what?
finalized our topic na. So we ended up choosing spatial mismatch decreases low skill job mobility.
Spatial mismatch. Okay. Your topic is actually in urban or regional economic analysis.
Yes, sir.
So for theories, you have to look at the papers and textbooks on urban economic analysis, regional economic analysis, economic geography, okay, regional science. These are all the same.
Okay.
Okay.
So the theories they don't have to focus on low skill job mobility only. They can pertain to
I'm sorry?
because the focus of our topic based on the format of the research question is low skill job mobility. So for the theories, we don't necessarily have to focus on that alone. We can talk
Well,
about
kasi right now, the way you're talking, parang you have no idea from which theory that particular conclusion comes from. Actually, there are many theories on that. That's why I'm letting you look up those theories now so that you can focus yourself on a particular theory and the conclusion of the theory when it comes to right now your tentative topic of spatial mismatch and labor mobility. And at the same time, hindi lang theory, titignan mo, hahanap ka ng data.
Yes, sir.
Okay?
Okay.
Chances are your data would be regional in nature. Kasi spatial mismatch, that's regional. Meaning to say, hindi national ang data. You have to look at cities, city level data, or NCR data. So you have to check for the availability of that data. Okay?
Okay. Okay. Thanks, sir.
You're welcome. For the RRL, okay, from Mr. Villarreal. Ang hilig mag-chat nito si Mr. Villarreal. Ayaw mag-unmute. Okay. For the RRL, are we also allowed to cite past RRLs in the topic? Or does it have to only consist of papers we directly read? Alam mo, RRL is RRL. It's a summary of the research that was done by other authors. Kaya ang gagawin mo, okay, that particular RRL mentions a number of papers and the like. You should try and read those papers too. Okay. Rather than just relying on the RRL that was written by other authors. Okay, but you'd have to read ideally those individual papers or publications that they cited. Okay, any more questions?
Hi,
Okay,
sir. I have another question.
okay.
I think this one's more concerned about like how we go about asking help from other professors as well, like when it comes like to the econometrics. Can external readers, the readers we choose for for like the thesis defense, etc., help us prior to say the thesis defense?
Ganun na ginawa nila last semester eh. Usually they got in touch na with Miss Bacani, with the Professor Saplala, si Professor Bacani, also Professor Moirong, and they asked them to be the reader as well. Kasi it's up to them if they will agree to be your reader. If you ask help on the econometric side, they're more than willing to assist you. Okay? And then if they ask them to be the reader, it's up to them. Kasi pwedeng mangyari, one of the reasons why they might decline your invitation to be the readers, baka naunahan ka na ng marami. So they're actually readers for several different papers. Okay, so that can happen. So yes, you can. Yes, you can.
Okay, thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Okay, any more questions? I suggested to you, if you have some free time, to watch a film like Hidden Figures. You can also want to watch this film, which is more appetizing. The focus is on food. You can watch the film Babette's Feast, okay? A 1980s film. It's a Danish film, but it's subtitled. Okay, it's said to be one of the most appetizing films in film history. Okay. Also, mga economists kayo, you can also try and watch the Dan Aykroyd was it Wills? No, it's not Wills. Yeah, it's Wills. Was it Will Smith? But you can watch that film Trading Places. Okay, yeah, the crucial strategy that they make there is something that economists should know or would know in terms of the issue of supply and demand. I remember back in the 1980s when we had when the video recording was done by what is called Betamax. I don't know if any of you still know that. I had a friend who invited me over to the house to watch a film. Okay, at that time, I couldn't afford the Betamax. So it was a treat to be invited to watch. And so, pinanood namin. Philosophy major ito. So when it came to that crucial point, and he says, and this is what we're going to do. I laughed. And I realized that he paused it and then asked me, can you explain to me what were they planning to do? Eh, syempre, I had to talk of the supply and the demand side and what they're expecting. It has to do with speculation on what would be the price of this commodity that they were going to be involved in trading with. They will be involved in the trading of orange juice. Okay, so you can watch that. That's also very entertaining, but at the same time, it's for economists. You're going to get it. Okay, if there are no more questions, okay, I'll be posting a recording of this as I always do in our canvas. Okay. Again, I advise you to download it as soon as possible because Zoom says they hold it for just 30 days. But I noticed lately, even after 2 weeks, sometimes it's already hard to access the recording. Okay. And I plan to put this recording, the video of this, on YouTube. So for future reference and for my future classes. Okay. There's a very high possibility that we might still be online in the first semester of next year. So I guess I would be collecting these videos, putting them on YouTube, and providing students with access so that I suppose we can spend most of the synchronous meetings just discussing your papers. Okay, so if there are no more questions, all right. So I plan on having a screenshot of everybody in our next synchronous class, all right? If it's all right with the rest of you. Okay. So if there are no more questions or comments, walang chat si Mr. Villarreal. But anyway, so if there are no more questions or comments, have a good day and have a good weekend. Okay. I'll see you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you,
My
sir.
pleasure. See you around. Take care.